Alcohol almost killed me, more than once. But one time in particular, one night, December of 2011, I almost lost my life from drinking too much and from doing the wrong things. So, here's my story. Friends, I'm so happy you're joining me again. I hope everybody's feeling blessed. So, December of 2011. I guess the best way is to start from the very beginning. The woman who is now my wife, at the time we were dating and we took a break. We took some time apart. So this one night, early December 2011, I went on a date, and when I was finished with the date, I dropped the girl off and I went to this bar. Now let me mind you, for this date, I had a brand new outfit on, brand new shoes, new socks, jeans, underwear, a shirt, t-shirt, and hoodie. Everything was brand new. My belt, I had a brand new leather belt on. It was like a $200 to $300 outfit, everything brand new. So I went on this date, I dropped the girl off, and then I went to my local bar, which was basically, I considered my home more than I did my actual home. And I knew the bartender very well. It was this girl who I was very close friends with, and she was dating a friend of mine who he was also a really close friend, and these two used to come over my house every day. I mean, literally every day. And at the time, I was a smoker and a drinker, and so was her boyfriend, and we got along real well. We knew each other from way back, and so we would get high and drunk and watch Sons of Anarchy every night. Like, was our thing. So real close friends of mine, and I'm at the bar and I'm drinking. Now, a week previous to all this, the bartender's boyfriend was in the bar and he got into an altercation with another friend of mine. I should probably come up with names because I'm afraid I'm going to drop names. So let's say the bartender's name is Melissa, her boyfriend's name is Michael, we'll call him Mike, and my other friend's name is Tony. Okay, so Tony and Mike are in the bar together and an altercation breaks out, and Mike says he's going to stab Tony, and they start fighting in the bar, and out drops a big buck knife. Solid, real solid handle. If you don't know, buck knives are very high quality, well crafted knives. So there's a scuffle. Mike gets thrown out. Tony gets to stay because Mike started the whole altercation. And that's when they realized that this knife had fallen from Mike. So Tony picks it up and he keeps it. It's a nice knife. Here we are a week later. I'm in the bar and I'm drinking. I wasn't there that night, mind you. But a week later, I'm in the bar and I'm drinking after my date. And I'm tying one on pretty good. Melissa's bartending. And Mike lived 2 doors down from this bar. Now, I don't know if he walked by the window or maybe he just saw my car there, but all of a sudden he started texting me real nasty things. He was under the assumption that I was, for whatever reason, sleeping with Melissa, and I wasn't. We were close friends, but that's all it ever was. It was never nothing more than that. And I'm like, he knew I was on a date earlier that day. I'm like, what are you talking about? So we start having these words back and forth. We're arguing with each other, and I'm saying nasty things. He's saying nasty things. And at this point, I'm pretty tuned up. I've drank a lot. And I wind up going out the back of the bar, and there was like a little footpath. I wouldn't even call it woods, but there's a little footpath behind some of the houses that led right into Mike's backyard. So, and it's nighttime, cold December night. And I walk back there, and Mike's standing there with his phone in his hand, and immediately he starts yelling at me, and I'm continuing to walk up, and he's telling me to stay back, and I continue to walk up to him, and I got my hands open like this, and I'm going, we're arguing, and I don't recall if he lunged at me or if I lunged at him. I'm usually a pretty passive person. I've been known to start some stuff when I've been drinking, but I honestly don't see myself lunging at him, again, because he was a friend of mine, and I was trying to understand, why would you think this of me? Why would you think I would do this to you? Like, I'm not that kind of person at all, So we an altercation broke out anyway. We start fighting, and we end up on the ground, and I'm on top of him, and I'm punching him in his face, and I felt bad because his head is against the ground. The back of his head is against the ground, so there's nowhere for it to rock back to. So every punch that I'm hitting him with, it's full impact, and there's no recoil. And I legit remember feeling like his nose breaking under my fist. I could feel the bones floating around when I was hitting him. I know it's terrible. I probably shouldn't even go into this much detail, but it was, I'm just trying to, as I'm reliving it and remembering what happened, I'm just trying to go through this. So I wind up feeling bad after hitting him like 2 or 3 times, and I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, this is my friend, man, this is wrong. So I stop and I stand up, and all of a sudden I feel real warm on my left side and I touch it and there's blood, and I'm like, dude, you stabbed me? And at this point, his dad, he lived with his parents, and his dad comes out the back door, and he's running through the yard towards me, and he's yelling because we're out there fighting. And I'm like, dude, he stabbed me. So he starts flipping out, and he grabs Mike and starts smacking Mike up and drags him into the house. And I was such a psycho back at this point in my life, and such an alcoholic, that all I'm thinking at this point is, so what? I've been stabbed. I'm going to go back into the bar and drink. So I walk back down the footpath through the parking lot and back into the bar. And immediately I'm like, yo, you believe this a-hole stabbed me? And I pick my shirt up and I show, and everybody's flipping out. They're like, oh my God, you got to go to the hospital. And I'm so cocky. I'm like, I ain't going anywhere without a beer and a double shot. And at this point, Melissa was done bartending, and she was on the other side of the bar drinking, and there was another man who was like a co-owner of this bar, and he was the one serving the drinks. And surprisingly, still to this day, I don't know why, but he actually served me. I'm bleeding out in his bar, and he gave me more alcohol, which obviously is thinning my blood even more, causing me to hemorrhage even more. So I sit there and I'm drinking my beer, down my double shot, and Melissa's like, hey, I'll take you to the bar. I don't want you to drive. You've been stabbed and you've been drinking a lot. I'm sorry, I'll take you to the hospital, not the bar. I don't want you to drive. You've been drinking and you're stabbed and whatnot. I don't want you passing out or anything. I'm like, all right, whatever. So I finished my drinks. Me, Melissa, and Tony, who was also there, ended up getting into Melissa's car, and she starts driving me to the hospital. And on the way to the hospital, I remember at one point, I guess she hit a bump or something, but my back hit the back of the seat, and I felt pain back behind my left shoulder. And I remember saying, I think he stabbed me in my shoulder too. Like there's some weird pain just shot through my shoulder. So I get to the hospital. They put me in a room, and I'm laying on my side, and there's 2 policemen outside of my hospital room. And I overhear them talking to each other, and one says to the other, like, oh, well, this one's got a knife sticking out of his back. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, there's a knife sticking out of my back? Literally, he chuckles at me and walks over, and he says, give me your phone. And I hand him my phone, and he takes a picture. Now, what happened was, I shouldn't have said his name. Michael had a knife, and when he stabbed me, luckily it was a cheap knife, because he lost his buck knife a week previous in the same bar that all this was going down. And so he lost his good knife, and he had a cheaper quality made knife that he probably got from the local flea market. I've talked about that in a previous video. We have a flea market not far from here, and they sell a lot of knives for they usually don't last very long. They fall apart quickly. So fortunate for me that he had a cheap knife, and when he stabbed me in my back, the knife stayed where it was, and the handle came off, and the only thing that was sticking out was this little tiny nub of metal, and it's this 6-inch folding pocket knife blade is buried in my back. Real quick, I almost forgot to add this in. The reason it was a good thing that he had such a cheap knife was when we were on the ground and we were fighting, after I was already stabbed twice and the blade had separated from the handle, he still had that handle in his hand. And when I was on top of him, I remember him punching me in my side of my chest. But what was weird about it is, instead of like an actual punch, he had his hand like this, and I remember thinking that was so weird that he's hitting me with like his thumb and his index. Like, why wouldn't he hit me with his knuckles, you know? And he's hitting me in my chest, and he was hitting me in my sides, and little did I know, and little did he know, that I didn't know he had a knife in his hand, and he didn't know that the blade wasn't there. It was just the handle. So if that knife wasn't cheaply made and didn't stay in my back, I would have been probably stabbed to death right there. If the first two didn't kill me, this was going to kill me. Because it would have been multiple stabs in my lungs, you know, my sides, and in my chest, possibly hitting my heart. So I just want to add that in real quick. The hospital I was at couldn't do anything, and so they put me on an ambulance and send me an hour north to a different hospital with a trauma center. And I go in there, and the whole time, again, I'm, you know, in the ambulance, I'm being cocky, I'm talking shit to the EMTs and whatnot, the paramedics. And I get to this other hospital, and immediately they lay me down on a table, and they take scissors and they cut all of my clothes off me, and I start flipping out because, again, everything was brand new. Everything was brand new. But it's their procedure. If somebody comes into the trauma center, they have to make sure if there's any wounds anywhere else, they cut your clothes off of you because they don't want to hurt you trying to remove your clothing. And then they check you all out. They look between your toes, between, you know, under your arms, between your butt cheeks. I mean, everything. It's very uncomfortable. So they cut my clothes off me. I'm flipping out. Long story short, they end up stuffing the wound in my lower left side with gauze, medicated gauze. They just stuffed it. They never sewed me up or anything. They pulled the knife out of my back, and they stuffed that also with medicated gauze. And they discharged me. Now, I am an hour plus away from where I live, and I have no clothes. I went there with a pack of cigarettes and a lighter. I had $20 stuffed in the cellophane of my cigarettes. Well, all of that was gone. They took my cigarettes, they took my lighter, and they basically, I was flipping out because they robbed me of $20. Luckily enough, because I didn't have any clothes and they're ready to push me out the front door of the hospital, there was a nurse there that said he had an extra set of scrubs. So he wound up giving me a set of scrubs that were way too big for me. And then another nurse gave me a top that was way too small for me. And so I looked super ridiculous leaving this hospital. And I do have to go back for a minute. So at this time, I know I've never shared any of this. I used to be over 400 pounds at one point when my daughter was first born. This all happened a year before my daughter was born. And I wasn't quite to 400 yet. I was probably around 370 pounds. And my brother Ron was actually, him and this other girl drove up to the hospital to meet me there, all the way an hour north hospital. And I remember that doctor coming in, and Ron, at the time, I'm 6'3", 370 pounds. I'm a huge person. And Ron is like 5'10", 140 pounds soaking wet. And I remember the doctor telling me that, you know, you're lucky you're such a big guy, because if you were skinny like your brother, he's like, both of these were fatal wounds. You would have died. You know, there was so much fat in these areas that it's actually saved your life. The x-rays of the knife that was behind my spine behind my shoulder, before they pulled it out, they took an x-ray picture, and it was less than an inch from my left lung. So that came very close to puncturing my lung. Plus, I could have made matters worse because I was up moving around. I'm at the bar, I'm drinking, I'm talking. You notice I talk with my hands a lot. I'm talking with my hands and moving around. The car ride there, I'm bumping it. It's going further into my back. It could have been much worse. But yeah, I almost died at the hands of somebody I would have considered a family member. That's how close me and this person were. We were very good friends. And it all resulted from the indulgence of alcohol. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say. I mean, I ended up healing up. It took a while. Luckily, I had my little cousin worked as a nurse. And, you know, they never gave me any instructions when I left the hospital. They just stuffed me with gauze and booted me out the hospital. And so she took care of me, put butterfly stitches on my wounds and made it so everything kind of healed back together properly. Yeah, it's a bad scene, man, real bad scene. So the alcohol, man, it almost cost me my life more than once, but that was probably the closest I came to knocking on death's door. And ironically, I'll save this for another video, but because I was so fat, it saved my life. Then a year later, my daughter's born, and being so fat was about to kill me. I had cardiologists tell me that I was a ticking time bomb and I was going to drop dead at any moment. I had a list of health issues this big. It was something needed to happen, or I wasn't going to be around to raise my daughter. So I'll save that for another video. But I love everybody. I hope you all stay safe, stay blessed, and if you're struggling right now, whether it's sobriety or with spirituality, just know you're not the only one. You know, there's a lot of us out there that have gone through some really bad things, and just know that I love you with all my heart, and I want nothing but success in your life. And if you ever want to reach out and talk, I will always respond. Yeah, so stay blessed. Love you all. Be safe. Bye.